We'll just talk and see how this goes.
Everything bothers him.
He's unbothered.
He calls it unbothered, but that's what's cute because everything bothers him. He's bothered. I'm a botherina.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Unbothered by Ty Rivera. That's right, another episode of Unbothered by Ty Rivera. And as always, I am your host of Unbothered by Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Bam! Before we get started, please make sure you hit the like button, comment when I get on your nerves, and subscribe so you know the next time that I'll be getting on your nerves. You know what's going to happen. Bijou is currently enjoying a Whimsy's alligator. Whimsy's alligators, never to be sponsored of Unbothered by Ty Rivera. We've already decided that we don't want them before they'll ever reject us. Bijou technically decided that. She was like, you know what? We're not groveling to them. Like, we've been shouting them out for the last, this podcast, I believe, is 5 years old now. Jesus. This podcast has been going for a while. But Bijou decided after 5 years she had had enough. She's not, like, she does more for them than they do for her. Link below. It's an Amazon link affiliate, so I do get a couple of cents off of whatever you buy. But it's a couple of cents, literally. So if you're going to put yourself out over it, don't do it. Just Venmo me or Cash App me. Ty Rivera-comedy on Venmo and Ty Rivera on Cash App. Those are the places. And I know I said I'm going to do my Patreon, but here's the problem. I feel like I already overshare. So if I show you guys the behind the scenes, it's really going to be bad. You know what I mean? Like, there could be fallout because I talk... I speak so freely that I sometimes have to edit stuff out because I'm like, you know what? And I don't really care for me. And it's just the kind of thing where I know that if I say anything that's really controversial, I know the comedy community will pay attention. So sometimes I kind of have to watch myself, and that's why I'll talk more about politics and stuff like that. Because if I talk about my regular life or like my actual life, then it would be talking about comedians and different things that have happened at different shows I've been to and shows that I've done. And I don't really want to have that kind of podcast, even though this might be that kind of episode. I don't know what's going to happen because tonight I was at Chonkla's and I absolutely love Chonkla's. I tell you guys, if there's a room to see me in Las Vegas, this is going to sound silly, but I also don't have any kind of hang-ups about the fact that I am... if you ask me, I'm an actual fucking road comic and like in a fucking roadhouse. Like, that's the kind of comedy I do. Like, roadhouse comedy in a bar, in a place where it's like not supposed to work out for you. That's the kind of comic I am. And I've done everything, and I've done plenty of everything. But for some reason, that's just the kind of comic I am. That's where I'm the most at home. That's where the people love me the most. And Chonkla's is definitely a version of that, even though it's not a roadhouse by any stretch, as in not on the highway, not like that. But it's, you know, it's just got kind of that vibe. And that's where, for some reason, I excel. And I really, you know, anyway, I'm just really at home there. So if you're ever in Vegas and you have a chance to check me out, and I'm going to be performing in Chonkla's, this is very specific. What are the odds the planets are going to line up like that? But anyway, if it's ever a Wednesday and I happen to be performing at Chonkla's and you're local, that's who it really benefits, is the locals. And I'm going to be performing there. You should stop in and check it out. No bullshit, no lie. I just go a lot off the top of my head when I'm there because a lot of the regular Las Vegas crowd comes out, and then comics will come to watch me as well. And so I feel like I'd rather stumble through new stuff and have fun, because it's not like I'm bombing while this is happening by any stretch. Like, when I say come see me there, come see me there. One time I posted a clip from there, and some people hit my Venmo and my Cash App. Venmo, Ty Rivera-comedy. Cash App, Ty Rivera. But, yeah, a couple of people hit it, and it hit it pretty good, to tell you the truth. It was very nice, but it was a good performance. So I can understand why people appreciated that. And sometimes I'll do that from time to time, even now. But it's like sometimes I want to just work on stuff and then show it, publicly, like online or whatever, once it's more worked out. But there was a lot of stuff that I was working on tonight, and it was so much fun. But like the thing was, there's a particular comic that I knew was going to be on the lineup, and really different people have their different reasons for not liking this particular comic. My thing is, I really did like this comic, and I still feel a bit of loyalty towards them. So it's not like I completely turned my back on them. Just I don't want to be associated with them, because for a minute they had a little bit of a fire, well, a lot of bit of a fire. And I was willing to stick with them through that, because I felt like I don't know that story. I don't know anything about it. I don't care. And I know that some people would be mad at me for saying I don't care, but I just don't care about a lot of stuff. And that's what it is. Stuff happens between other people, and I don't let that get in my way. If somebody's good to me, then they're good to me. And that's just the way I see it. And I understand how people see it the opposite. But you got to remember, a lot of us have had that one friend that would definitely steal from other people but wouldn't steal from you. So the people that they stole from could say that they're a horrible person, but like you personally or me personally, I know a different side of them they would never steal from, like that kind of thing. And it's not, and some people would judge me for that, but I'm so old that I don't care about that. Like for me, I'm not concerned with the outside world like that. The people that are good to me, and I hang out with them. But this person was making it so that people wouldn't just forget about that situation. Like it was always almost their calling card, or the way that they would introduce themselves. And so finally I told them, well, not finally, because it didn't take long for me to tell them, but I was just like, look, if that story doesn't paint you in a positive light, then why would you always tell that story? And why is it every time I walk up to a different headliner, you're talking to somebody from out of town, you're telling them that story? So you're making it so this story is your forward. It's what you're about is this story, where my thinking is, if you're trying to get people to leave you alone about a particular thing or make them not pay attention to that, then you don't constantly draw attention to that. And so I feel like if you're going to be that guy, that's fine. And this is stuff I said to him. I'm paraphrasing because obviously I can't remember the exact conversation, even though I have text of part of it. But like my thinking is, if you're going to be that guy, that's fine. And that's for you. But I don't constantly want to be hanging out with that guy. So don't look to me to co-sign on this story that I don't even think you should be telling. And not for any bad, just because why do you want to make that your thing? And I could go into details, but I don't want to make this that person's thing. I'm just letting you guys know on a friend level and a comic level how I feel about it. And so I told them this, and then they not only did that on stage, did that story on stage, that's the negative story, but then they were making it a point to like let everybody know I was their friend, and I co-signed to them. And as a friend, I did co-sign to them, but as telling that story, I already told you I don't want to be associated with that. So I don't know, one, why you're even still doing it, and two, why you're trying to tag me so hard in this behavior. Because for me, I just don't want to be a part of it. None of it. And so I just completely disassociate from that person, and I sent them a text letting them know so it wasn't like a surprise. And I just don't want to be around that person, because like I said, I'll have your back when it's something to do with other people. Then that to me is loyalty. But loyalty to you stops at me, is the way I feel about that. Once I feel like you're a destructive presence in what I'm trying to build and what I'm trying to do, and you're trying to brand yourself that way apparently, and I'm not trying to be branded with that at all, then I feel like that's where I cut you off. And so I don't talk to this person anymore. And when I saw that they were going to be on the show, I'm headlining the show. And I know that I could have asked for them to be pulled off the show. And this is maybe what I'm teaching you guys, is why I've more recently gone back on what I said when I was like, I wouldn't have somebody taken off the show. This is why I feel like I'm right in the times that I have now had people taken off the show, is because people aren't ever going to just leave it at that and be like, oh, cool, Ty was cool enough not to make this a thing and let me be on the show. Fine, you're on the show. I didn't book it, but you're on the show. But then to walk up and try to because first they walked up and I didn't know who it was. I just saw somebody do you know what I mean? It was like periphery type thing, and I'm cool with everybody. So they give me the what's up and I give them the what's up. And then I notice who it is. And then they put their hand out to fist bump me. And I feel like that's exactly what I didn't want. Like, that's why I have people not be on the shows with me, is because I know they're going to make it uncomfortable. I know they're going to overstep. I know they're at some point going to do something where it's like, and I'm not even mad at this person, or I don't have any feelings about them in that way. So it's not like that. But at the same time, it's like, just leave me alone. Like, just be intuitive enough to know that I don't want to have a heart-to-heart. I don't want to talk to anybody about anything serious right now. I just don't. I'm not fucking you. So that's the way I feel with a lot of people and a lot of things that need to be straightened out. I feel like, yeah, I don't care if they ever get straightened out, a lot of these things, because I don't want to have a heart-to-heart with anybody. I don't really care that much in that way. And I know that bothers people, because you're supposed to forever be in toxic situations with people, and we all have that friend that we hate. No, I don't. I really don't have that friend that I hate. I hang out with people that I think are cool. I hang out with people that have differing opinions, but I still think they're great people, and I don't look at it as like, different people come from different things with different factors for me. So I don't look at things but through this, like, when it comes to these situations, like even dealing with these people and the different beefs that they have, no matter how serious or whatever they consider them, that's none of my business. And I don't know anything about that ever. And I don't want to know, so it's like, it's like a weird thing where it's like I completely like just being my own thing and not having to worry about everything. And some people will get like, well, I can't believe you hang out with this person. I would never hang out with them because I just have a moral. Okay, well, that's you. So you be that morally upstanding person and you stay wherever you are, and I'll stay wherever I'm at. But like I said, once you get to a point where you're trying to make yourself about that, then I don't want anything to do with you. And so don't bug me later on, because I gave you a warning, and it's nothing personal in that way. It's just not for me. It's just like, yeah, I would never want to have to tell you again. And I know you're going to tell that story. After I stopped hanging out with them, they still continued to tell the story on Facebook. People would every once in a while be buzzing about it and be like, they're talking about it again. Now they're on Facebook Live. And I'm just like, why does this person want to make that their branding so bad? Like, if you want to, okay, you're that guy. But guess what? I don't want to hang out with that guy. I don't want to be known as co-signing to that guy. The guy I knew, cool. This guy, no. So just leave me alone. And that's for everybody that has anything that they want to talk to me about, or they think is somewhat important, or they feel like we need to patch up. When we're on a show together, yeah, maybe sometime in our personal life we can talk about that stuff. Like, I'm not completely closed off to anybody. It's not like I'm swearing people off or I think people are dead. Just for me, I don't really want to talk to them for right now, and I'll decide when I feel like talking to them again, and stay away from me until then. Just, we can coexist and not have any kind of drama, and also not have like a weird, for me it's not like a weird thing. I don't feel like, oh, he's here. I just feel like, yeah, there's another person in the room. There's a bunch of people in the room that I don't know or I don't talk to, and that's just because they're regular bar goers, or they haven't seen me before. I haven't seen them before. They're comics that I haven't met. They're like, it doesn't mean there's shade going on because we don't interact. So let's just not interact that same way. For me, it's not that hard of a thing to do. But people always want to do that stuff. The other guy that I told you about, the one that was supposed to be at that club with me in Glendale, which Glendale, the shows were great. And thank you everybody that came out, because people really did show up specifically for me, which is always a really good feeling. Because, sometimes when you're doing a lot of stuff I do on the road, they don't even know that I'm going to be the comedian. It's just a show that's a comedy show, and then I end up being the headliner, and then they love me after. but they don't just know me like that, like I do a lot of true road stuff where you're basically unannounced, you just go in, set up, and then it's comedy and you're the headliner, and it's, so it was great, and I appreciate everybody that showed up. There's certain cities where people really show up, and Vegas is also turning into one of them, which is great because, like I said, when it comes to like always doing different material and stuff like that, when I talked about that, for me, it's a little bit like, tightropey feeling, but at the same time it's so much fun, and I'd so much rather do that. And I used to have to do it all the time because I would get booked in Fresno and Bakersfield in those areas quite a bit when I was living in LA, and I would go do these shows and I would have to always have new material because a lot of regulars, it's Bakersfield, Fresno, so you get like some people that haven't seen you before, but then you get the ones that regularly show up. Or the Bay Area was another place, San Jose specifically. San Jose Improv used to have me do weekends there, and they would also have me do like some regular shows there, and people would show up for me regularly, and I felt like I owed it to them to at least give them a different show. So I would have really good times like that, and that's a part of my thing. But also, I don't think about what I'm saying when I do those kinds of things, and I know that sometimes I say things that even make me look bad, but that's why I don't really care when other people get triggered by my material, because I feel like, you think I'm talking about your group of people bad? Listen to what I'm saying about myself. Listen to the way that I paint myself. And it's just because, one, I'm being honest in the stories that I'm telling, and then I just have to paint it in the funniest way possible. And if you've ever heard my stuff, I'm a ridiculous person. I am. I don't pretend to be just like a normal guy. So like the way I come at it is, I'm just going to say this in the funniest way that I can say it, and I don't care who it's about, and I don't care who it hurts, because nobody should be hurt. That's the reason people always find me funny or like what I do. And this isn't me tooting my own horn or being silly or anything like that. Like, I know the dynamics of why what I do works. You're an idiot if you don't know, or you're not a good comic, but like one way or another, you should know the dynamics of why what you do works. And with me, it is because I don't at all try to come from a place of we're going to relate. My thing is, we're probably not going to relate. I'm probably a different kind of dirtbag and a different kind of asshole than you are, and you should be a better person than this. And then some people listen to me and they're like, yeah, this guy is the person that I wish I could talk like, but I have a regular job or whatever, so I'm happy he says it. Like, there's those people that like me in that way. So I know, like, and there's a lot of different dynamics that work different ways, and I'm aware of most of them. But like, then there's also the fact that since I'm willing to have such fun with myself and be so, speak so disparagingly of myself, because I really do go in on me. Like, if you listen to my sets, I give a lot. I do take liberties as well, but I do give a lot when it comes to what I say about me. I'm a good sport about me. And there's times when I'm on stage where I'm thinking the whole time, like, why are you saying this right now? You should not be saying this to strangers. This is not talk that should leave your head. But I do it. And that's why I don't care about triggers or people being like, this joke you did was racist, or this particular thing. It's like, yeah, whatever. Did people laugh or not? Because my job is to make people laugh. And then later on, I'll think about it and I'll wonder why I said that. And then that's where the joke will come from. That's why I don't pay attention to triggers when it comes to comedians. Because if you're really supposed to be a comedian, your triggers are supposed to make your jokes. That's the way I see it. So I saw a couple examples that I really didn't like the other day, and I'm not calling these people out because really I like both of these people. I have good relationship with both of these people, and one more than the other. But like, this is my friend John Hilder. He posted something about Parlor, and that, there's people that can take a loss gracefully and something else, and then, for the people that can't, there's Parlor, which I just joined Parlor the other day, and maybe he thought that was like a funny joke or whatever, but to me, when it comes to that, Well, I'd like to see him deliver it and people laugh at it, because I don't think that that would be like a good joke just from a joke, because I hear jokes all the time that aren't with my thinking. So if it's just going on joke, if you ask me, it's not a very good joke, just arbitrarily. That's what it was. So if that's what it's supposed to be. But if you're taking a swipe at people because people feel like they're not able to communicate in public spaces, and you're like, okay, maybe I should check something else out where I can communicate with the other people that think like me and not constantly get shouted down on Facebook and Twitter, then why would I not look into that option? Because sometimes, and I would never want my life to be an echo chamber, but sometimes it does get a little annoying that all these people think this one way, and if you don't think that way, then you're the worst person in the world and you're not allowed to share information. So I don't really understand why anybody would have a problem with somebody. It's not like we're hanging out at Facebook saying Facebook should change their terms of service to be this, this, and this. It's the most proactive thing in the world to be like, okay, if they're not giving me what I want here, then why wouldn't I go there? Or why wouldn't I at least check that out if that might give me the freedom that I want? And so somebody in the comments mentioned that they were, just wondering how a comedian, paraphrasing all of this, I'm trying my best to be accurate, though. I'm not trying to at all like color it, because to me, it's kind of a straightforward story, and it is what it is. It's different of opinion, but I'll just tell you why I came at it the way I did. That the other person was wondering how a comedian, or if he found it, because John Hilder is a comedian. So this person was wondering if John Hilder thought that it was a bit ironic that a comedian would be on the side of censoring people. And the way that John Hilder came at it to me was also defensive, and really shouldn't have been, because what are you talking about? Like, you really are mad at somebody because they decided to check out a different option? Or if we're talking about just censorship, like in the vein of Lenny Bruce or what stand-up comedy is supposed to be, don't you think that might be a fair question? Don't you really want as many opinions as possible? That's why I said I'll never live in an echo chamber, because I'll never fully leave Facebook, because I do think I learn things from listening to people that come from a completely different perspective than I do. And I don't mind hearing that at all. What I don't like is the amount that people will call people stupid. And this is why this whole exchange got on my nerves, because I was seeing it happen. And I was seeing people that I like doing it, but in a way where it's like, it didn't have to be this. This could be the conversation. If you want people to stay on Facebook, maybe this is where you can show them that you can have a productive conversation on Facebook. Because that's what a lot of us are tired of, is not being able to have productive conversations with people that are different from us. And sometimes somebody can completely see something a different way than you see them. The things, not the person. They can completely see things a different way than you see those same particular things, and because of where they were raised, how they were raised, their race, a bunch of different factors, sexual orientation, gender identity, all of that stuff, if we're really being that way, which I'm fine with, but I'm just, understand, if you're going this way, I go this deep because these are all the principles that thinking runs on. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't understand. Like, they think that I just get hair trigger over one particular thing. For me, it's the bad example that you're making at that point, that you can't have a difference of opinion with somebody and not be able to go back and forth with them, especially in an analytical way when they're talking about censorship and that kind of thing. To me, that should be kind of easy for you to do, even if your opinion is not like mine. And so you shouldn't move into a defensive posture. So then this one girl, Didi Alina, or Diamera, I think they used to call her Didi if I remember correctly. I just remember that she's a nice girl from Facebook, and we've met at Noreen's a couple of times. times and chatted there. And I don't dislike her. But just she jumped in and trolled the guy in a way where it's like, one, why can't I see this conversation happen in a serious way? Why did you feel like you had to troll at that moment? It really wasn't necessary. And it kind of was you trying to do a bailout because this could potentially be a tough question for John to answer when it comes to censorship and comedy, because that's something I think as comics that we should agree on when we're talking stand-up. When we're talking your personal morals or the way you live your life in regular life, and it may not be the same as mine all the way around, or we might be more similar than we think. But whatever it is, it's allowable because, one, you're in stand-up comedy, and two, in a lot of cases, that's what the job is. Like earlier when I said, you just try to paint things to be the funniest way that they can possibly be. So the words you might use may not be the most politically correct words, but it's because that paints that particular picture, and sometimes just that particular thinking or that particular part of your comedic thinking. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's choosing the best words for that job, you know, which is what a lot of times jokes are. And so, you know, yeah, you could say the more politically correct thing and have a less funny version of it, and that might make you happy or whatever, but like, am I just trying to make you happy, or am I more worried about the audience? But anyway, so I thought that maybe if she had added something like why she thought, you know, and if you want to be a little bit of a troll and I get that. I do that sometimes where you do kind of be condescending, but it's like that's allowable. But to completely torpedo it, which is what she did, and in a way that if a man talked to you that way, and I know she does do the feminist thing, which when you do that, I'm fine with you doing that. But at the same time, again, I'm going to hold you to those rules, because if you really feel like they should treat you like an equal, then you should treat them like an equal as well. Otherwise, it's not working. Otherwise, it's just them having to bow down to you, which I don't know a lot of people that are going to bow down to you like that. Maybe they're out there, but you know, if you talk to me that way, then right away I just feel like I don't even take this person seriously. And I may not be particularly shitty with you, but I would just be like, yeah, I don't consider this person. I'll probably block your ass because I'm not just going to talk to me crazy. Like, you got to have some respect if you want people to treat you with the respect. So that bothered me. And then she tried to say that she was just trolling when I did call it out. But like, to me, that's a cop-out. It's like, just admit that you were being this particular way with a stranger. And she said that, you know, he had trolled her back. And so I copied and pasted his exact response to her, which didn't sound like he was trolling her back. He was still trying to have the conversation. And so, you know, that post, even if I didn't particularly like it, could have been a chance for them to have an actual conversation and maybe write some jokes, because that's what I use a lot of this stuff for. Like, some people think I'm just arguing online, but a lot of times I'm mining these people, because if I know how they think, then I know what my joke can be. And sometimes the joke isn't necessarily even my opinion. It's the part that triggered me, and I found a way to put a punchline on that, and then that made the joke. You know, and also not censoring myself. Like I said, when I'm on stage, I'm not thinking about anybody's feelings other than the audience. Like, I do want to make them laugh. So their feelings, as long as they're feeling good, I don't care about other comedians. I don't care about LGBT. I don't care about anything. I'm just having fun. I'm just trying to phrase things in the funniest way possible. And we're all living in the same world. And my scope is a bit different because I'm gay and Latino, and I don't know a lot of gay Latino comics, so it's not like I really should be thinking like everybody else. And that's what I think a lot more comics need to think about, instead of getting into their I am not able to say these things or think these things because I'm this particular race. Even when it comes to white guys, when I hear white guys saying, well, I am a cisgender straight white man, so I really do have to watch. No, you don't. If you think it and you can find a way to make it funny, then you should say it. The only thing that I feel that way about, and even that isn't a hard and fast rule for me, is the N-word. Like, that one does shut down a lot of rooms. And if you're featuring for me, I'm not going to let you do your N-word joke because I'm not going to clean up that mess, which is what's going to happen if it doesn't go over. You save your N-word bit for when you're a headliner. Then the world is your oyster. You do that. But when you're featuring for me, because I've had a few comics suggest that they were going to do N-words. One in the hotel before, he was like, my grandma used to tell me this thing, and I was just like, yeah, that's not happening on my show. You save that for headlining. But outside of that, and even that, if somebody did an N-word joke and they were white, Latino, Asian, something other than black, and the whole audience went crazy, and it was just a funny joke. One, I'm going to laugh just because that's the way my body works. I hear something that's truly funny and I just laugh, and it's not, what's it called? But I just haven't seen people be able to pull it off for a long time unless they're black. Because it does change the whole mood, and not everybody's cool with it. So for me, it's still out, but you can do it if you're headlining, whatever. And if they go crazy and it just makes me as a reflex laugh, then I'm going to be on board and be like, yeah, that is a good joke. It may not be politically correct, and people might get mad just from hearing it, but it is a good joke. And that's between that comedian and the audience at that point, because it's not about me. Again, the same way I'm not worried about anybody else, I don't think anybody else should be worried about me. When I hear comics do gay jokes or Latino jokes or any joke that's supposed to, even jokes about people that are, voted for Trump supporters, whatever. If it's a good joke, I laugh and I don't care. And if it's not a good joke, I just don't laugh, but I don't feel triggered and like they shouldn't be able to do that joke. Sometimes they really will inspire me to think, because I'll think like, what's the opposite of that joke? Okay, why can't I write that? And why can't I do that on stage? Instead of turn it into a whole, I've got to write a blog about this type of thing. Because why? You're a comedian. Why not write a joke instead of writing a blog? You can be a victim or you can be a comedian. That's the way I see a lot of that stuff. Is like, why would you choose the lame option when your job is to make people laugh at things that they otherwise wouldn't laugh at? And what would be a better thing to make them laugh at than something that you technically shouldn't even laugh about, or you shouldn't even have to find funny? But that's the world we live in. And I think that's where me being a person of color and LGBT, that comes from, and not being sensitive. Because when I was growing up, I don't pretend to be a young guy. I grew up in Arizona, and so people said racist stuff all the time, and there was no place you could go with it. When I first started doing comedy, people were allowed to be as homophobic as they wanted to be. Nobody cared. And so I wasn't going to be able to write a blog because that was MySpace days, and nobody wanted to read your blog like that on MySpace. Like, your blog on MySpace was supposed to be fun if you even wrote a blog. MySpace was about bulletins and your top 8. Nobody was worried about your shitty blog and your feelings. Not on MySpace, sister. Nope. You better save that. Save it for a couple years, because along came Facebook. And, then when Facebook came out, people started there was a little while in between there where people were getting adjusted and learning how to be offended all the time. It took them a minute to really catch on to but once they got it, they got it. But it kind of ruined comedy in a way, stand-up, because what would make a lot of us, I'm sure the female comics used to see it this way too. Like, they'd be upset about certain things and they would take it to the stage. Then that's where you got like the good, what you could call feminist comics, or comics that took that feminist like point of view even before that was an actual thing, where they would call out different things that were bullshit for them. But that also, I think, came from them not having another outlet for that. So it was like, okay, I'll do this with stand-up. But with stand-up now, there's so much the victim culture is so profitable in stand-up that people forget to write jokes, and they think that they don't have to write jokes, and they think because somebody can do a joke about something that's triggering for them and they can only talk about it in a serious way, now that makes the other person a bad person, when that doesn't make them a bad person. That makes them an actual comedian, and you a person that writes blogs but considers yourself a stand-up comedian because you go on stage sometimes. And I'm not trying to be rude with anybody or any kind of nothing. I've been accused of gatekeeping before because I think this way, but I don't think there's anything wrong with like the thinking. Like, I'm not gatekeeping. Anybody that's funny should be a stand-up comedian. But if you think that I'm gatekeeping because I think that stand-up comedians should be good at making things funny, I don't care how dirty, how edgy, how clean, how whatever it is, then I don't understand how I'm wrong in that situation, or how I'm the terrible person for expecting you to be able to meet the requirements of the job. Like, is that me being... And I don't care if you're male, female, trans, black, white, Latino, Asian. I don't care even a little bit. None of it. I don't care. I'm not. That is true equality to me. No matter what your factors are, I expect you to be able to make stuff funny. I don't think that you should just turn yourself into a victim and be like, oh, she's so brave, or he's so brave. It's like, yeah, you can be funny and brave. Trust me. I've been doing both for a long time. And that's why I don't listen to a lot of people, because I'm good at those parts. Like what you're talking about, you want to be on your blog, is what I am in regular life. And any comedian will tell you that. So sometimes when I get told that I'm gatekeeping, I'm like, no, I'm not gatekeeping at all. Not even a little bit. I want you to be funny, because then I get to be entertained. Then I get to actually enjoy your point of view. And some people, to tell you the truth, don't write a lot. And sometimes that's kind of frustrating too. Because it's like, you call yourself a stand-up comedian, but you never write new jokes? How does that even work? How do you not get inspired throughout the day and just think, this would be funny? And even if you just use it once and then throw it away, or use it a couple of times and it's cool, what are you doing exactly? So then you get mad at me because I do actual material about things that are either very current or very personal for me. And I'm always willing to step outside of the box and do new material. But you're mad at me because that material might cross the line for you when you don't write new material. Well, it's easy to stay in the lines when you keep the same act forever. But is that really a reason for me to be judged? Again, are you doing the job right now, or am I doing the job? Because I feel like I'm doing the job. And I know, like I said, that some people would consider that gatekeeping in some way, but it's really not. It's just saying we should meet a certain standard. If people are expected to spend their money or take time out of their day to come watch us, if people are going to pay us for what we do, shouldn't we at least do the job? If people are going to pay for parking, get babysitters, do all the stuff that they have to do in order to make it out for stand-up comedy, don't we at least owe them to make sure that it's funny and possibly something that they haven't seen before? You don't have to have a new act all the time. I don't have a completely new act all the time. But I'll mix it up and I'll let them see some stuff that they haven't seen before, and stuff that might be new that I'm working on, and just give them a mix just to give them something different and make sure that they get their money's worth. But that's not okay. Instead, I'm supposed to give them the same act just to make sure that it's politically correct and safe and doesn't hurt anybody's feelings. Okay, well, you can do that if you want to, but I'm going to be over here being funny like I usually do. I personally like the feeling when the audience laughs. I like when I don't have to feel bad about asking for my money at the end of the show or at the end of the weekend. Because I don't know if you guys have ever bombed before. Well, I'm lying. I know that most of the people that care about this stuff have done nothing but bomb. And I'm not even being catty even a little bit. Just these people, the ones that have the opinions, usually aren't the best comics in the world. And the ones that are okay, they really think they're killing it. But in a lot of cases, you're like, you're just okay. You just feel like you're really good because you're surrounded by that shit. And anything can look good next to shit. But you come stand next to real comics and suddenly your star doesn't shine so bright, hun. And that's another thing. Sometimes people will try to throw that at me because I'm not rich and famous. But the truth is, if you walk up to a bunch of respected comics and I walk up, we're going to have different reactions, or different reactions are going to come our way. Respected comics like me, like what I do. It's not like I'm just talking out of my ass with all this. Technically, respected comics look down on me only for interacting with the open micers as much as I do, because they think that I should completely ignore them like they do. That's really the heat that I get from other people that headline or actually work in stand-up, is people are usually like, why do you even bother talking to the open micers, hanging out with the open micers anymore? I drop my stock to be in the open mics because I always want to be working on new material. And a lot of those comics, even though I admit are more successful, working more, all that kind of stuff, they also, in a lot of cases, got more industry ins because, like I said, when I started, it was like a weird period. So by the time I developed into me, the politically correct side of LGBT and us having a stereotype we had to live up to became an actual thing, and I wasn't willing to do that. Now, for me, that would be selling out. A lot of people say that I'm tap dancing now, which I've addressed before. It's the most ridiculous. If you ever watched me in real life before, seen me perform, even on TV, I don't tap dance for any audience. That's not what you would call what I'm doing. But I don't mind people saying that, because to me, what would have been tap dancing would have been if I had taken that route, which I don't even know if I would have been capable of taking, really, because I don't know if I could play the part to that degree, because everybody wanted, like, Sean Hayes from Will and Grace, I forget his name. I never watched Will and Grace like that, but Jack is his name. Yeah, I've seen it a few times, but I wasn't watching TV at that time because I was doing stand-up, but I knew like that character and the stereotype that he was playing. Alec Mapa does the same thing, which Alec Mapa I've gotten into it with on social media before, just because we'll get into that another time, but I feel like that's tap dancing. So when people like him have an opinion on me, because one time I posted something, he didn't agree with it. Bruce Valanche also didn't agree with it. And, Bruce Valanche... Anyway, these people will try to come after me for having different thoughts sometimes. And it'll just be like a quick where it's, they let me know that I'm being out of line for a gay person. And I feel like, no, you're actually kind of the embarrassment in all this, because you can't see past your own thinking, because you do think in gay thoughts. Like, I think in regular people thoughts. I'm not always about LGBT, because that's not the whole of my life experience, and I haven't had the luxury of just being in that community. I've had to be around different types of people. Ironically enough, because the LGBT rooms didn't want to accept me because they thought that I was too much. But my version of being too much was just being really funny and being ethnic and being able to say things that they couldn't necessarily get away with. So they felt like they were working at a handicap because they were white or trying to live up to the stereotype of what their race dictates they should be, which I don't have that problem. Like me, I don't care. I'm Mexican. To me, that is fun to talk about because it's from my actual life, so I don't mind talking about it sometimes, but I don't feel like I have to live up to a particular thing to be Latino, because I am Latino, and I know Latinos are all different things. My friend Jen Garcia, she talked a lot about this, and I really liked the way that she did this. You guys got to see her on YouTube. I'll include a link, and I'll put the link below, but she talks about, like being Latino, being so many different things, and the way different things work out in the different dynamics. And this is where I get to prove to you that I am the person that I say that I am when it comes to hearing things that aren't the same way that you think them, but still finding a place to make the joke or finding a way to be cool with that person or just see things in a different way. Jen was talking about Eva Longoria said something that was considered racist towards black people. Well, not racist, but insensitive, and made it seem like Latinas get the credit instead of black women for the way that, whoever voted. It's all nonsense and people being offended just to be offended, which Jen addresses in her video. But then she also talks about some of the dynamics that happen with Latinos and, from different places and different skin colors and just all the different things that are Latino, because there are the white, look like regular white people, what everybody would consider white people, but they speak full Spanish. They're Mexican, they're Argentinian, they're, like there's the different, and then there's the Cubans. Some of the Cubans look white. Then there's the darker skin Cubans, and there's darker skin Mexican. There's like everything with being Latino, Afro Latino, like there's all of it. So she was talking about the way the different dynamics work, but she's from New York. So she's talking about a lot of the different dynamics there. And, what she grew up seeing, like dealing with Cubans, Puerto Ricans, like more like that. When you're over here, it's mostly Mexicans, when you're on the West Coast, Southwest, all of that, it's mostly Mexicans. And so her experience and what she saw is different from what I saw. And there was a part of me that wanted to be like, no, that's not the way it is. I don't know why she's saying that. That's not the way it is. And then it hit me. It's like, oh, she deals with different Latinos on a different part. So in this part, I should shut my mouth and listen to her. And I was agreeing with a lot of the points that she was saying, even if they didn't apply in that particular way for me. I knew the exact dynamic she was talking about. So I find the place to be in common with her. And instead of getting triggered and shutting it off, I end up learning more and more from the way another person sees it, which there's nothing wrong with somebody seeing something a different way. And then maybe, it obviously inspired me to talk here on my podcast about that and gave me a way to show you guys another way that could be different if you guys end up checking out her video. If you've made it this far, I do recommend you check out her video. If you have any interest in the way dynamics work out with Latinos and black people in different cases, American black people versus black people from Latino countries, Afro-Latinos, as they say, it really was a good, like, to me, and she's so clear about this is just what I'm gonna say, and I'm not trying to be the most politically correct, because I have another friend that runs a show called True Serum, Ida Rodriguez, who I really do love. Ida Rodriguez, she got me on Roast of America, and I'll always be grateful to her. And she thinks of me at times when I can honestly say I wouldn't even think she'd be thinking about me. And I really do love her. So this doesn't come from any kind of shade place, but I don't always like watching Ida stuff because she doesn't really allow people to challenge her. Like, she has an opportunity to have had me on her show, and I'm not bitter about not being on her show. I don't really like doing a lot of stuff like that, but I feel like with her we could have a good conversation. But I also know, because I've done one of her shows before, that she doesn't try to let the other opinion in. And if you're doing that and you're a guest on somebody's show, you don't want to be rude and just barge in, so like in the conversational way. But at the same time, like, I'll politely address something or bring something up, and then she'll like try to just cut it off and do her opinion and like the I'll speak for you thing. And it's like, no, you're not speaking for me. Like, really, I would like to have this conversation with you because I have a couple of questions, and I feel like if you're really genuine, then I should be able to learn something from you. And I don't see why you're getting flustered at me asking. We're friends. I like you. So there's a fly, which is, I'm goddamn Mike Pence over here. I wasn't going to talk about politics, but I've just turned into anyway, I was speaking. I'm such a cheeseball. I'm such a cheeseball. Anyway, yeah, I don't think Ida really allows people to press her. And I think that would also make her show better. Because the times that I've watched her show, it's just been such an I agree fest that it doesn't make me want to watch again. And if people don't like watching this, one, I don't know how you made it this far, but congratulations. But if people don't like me, don't like me, because I like Ida and I like the idea of what she's doing. I just don't like I said, that it's always just an I agree fest. And I feel like, I think she thought I was trolling her the other day because I happened to pop in. But when you're talking about Biden and Harris, And then I want to know how you, as a Latina, or I think she might identify as Afro-Latina, Ida Rodriguez, if I'm asking you, how is it you reconcile with Joe Biden's past? And it's not to be a troll. It really is to know from another person of color, and one that's well spoken, and one that reads the news and is well thought. I wasn't coming from a place of I'm trying to troll you. I'm trying to get you to just talk about that because it interests me. Like when people ask me about being a Trump supporter, you notice I don't get mad about it. There's certain times that when they try to bring it up as a weapon, then I'll be like, yeah, I'm not doing that with you right now. Let's not get sidetracked. Let's stay on the subject. But when people genuinely ask me why I support Trump, and I'll give them a quick why so they can know. And then they don't just have this idea that they have of Trump supporters are all racist and xenophobic and all the things we hear Trump supporters are. To me, that's the place to teach. So for me, that's where Ida could have taught me. But instead, she got flustered with me. And I felt like, why are you at all challenged by this? This is not a challenge. I would come at you a different way if I was challenging you. I'm asking you because you're on that subject, and people like you do tend to shame people like me and do tend to make a lot of assumptions in that we are racist, homophobic, xenophobic, all of that stuff. But I think people don't really like talking to me about that stuff because they know that they can't use the regular cards that they use, where it's like telling people that they have white privilege or they don't understand what it's like to be oppressed or what it's like to be ignored sometimes in society. None of that. Or, the police not treat you fairly. A lot of that stuff isn't really going to hold with me. And I can say that all those things do exist. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I have to completely subscribe to your way of thinking. And maybe if you're really giving the truth serum, then somebody should be able to ask a question about the truth. That's the way I see it. And I'm not even trying to be like, I hope nobody looks at it as me coming for anybody. And if you tell them that I talk about them, I'm going to not tag because I don't want to look like a thirst trap, but I am going to send private messages to everybody that I talked about on this episode just so they know that, I've said some stuff. And I don't mind if any of them want to come on my podcast, except for the one that I said I don't want to hang out with like that. Maybe one episode, finally, I'll talk about it or something. But save that for Patreon when I actually do that. Because I will do it, but I have just some stuff that's kind of personal that I feel like if I do the Patreon, I have to put that stuff on. And I'm kind of grappling with that. I'm kind of grappling with just all the way around how much more open I want to be, because I feel like I'm already so open. And this episode to me, I guess, is a good way to test it out and see how comfortable I feel talking about everything and see what the feedback is on some of this. I feel like the real lessons do come from my life, and I feel like if I can incorporate those, it might make things more understandable, where people sometimes have questions about me or wonder why I'm the way I am as a person, or why certain things kind of appear to set me off. Because none of this, I say appear because none of it really sets me off. At the end of the day, I have bijou, and I go to the gym, and I do jump rope, and I try to eat like I'm supposed to eat. I've got 800 calories to go. After I wrap this up, I can kill 800 or probably like 600 calories now. But my life isn't at all overtaken with any of this, but also because, like I said earlier, I put such boundaries down about so many things, and I'm so clear about, like, I'm going to hang out with who I want to hang out with, regardless of what your experience would been with them or what you say about them. It's just the way it is. Almost everybody I know, if they really wanted me to be honest with them, I've heard bad things about all of you. It's just what it is. I've even said a couple bad things about some of you. It's, what of it, miss? It happens every once in a while. Once in a while, you're talking shit. Somebody just got on your nerves, and you're like, you know what that asshole did today? And I'm sure you've done it with me, too, if you're being honest. So you can play holier than thou. But I am not. I am not playing that at all. I am saying I am occasionally a horrible human being, but I think overall, when it's all said and done, I think I'll be worth my headache. And that's honestly the way I feel about everything. I know me, and I'm turning into a better person than I probably thought I would turn into. And I could have talked about that date that I went on the other night, but I'll just say, well, it wasn't even a date. I talked about it a little bit on Facebook. Long story short, I knew I didn't want to have sex with this guy. I don't know why, because he definitely was cute enough, but I just wasn't feeling it. And even though I kind of blue balled him, I paid for dinner, so I feel like it's not like this night cost you anything, or I used you for a dinner or had you do anything for me and then didn't put out at the end, which I know some people would say, well, you don't have an obligation to put out. Sometimes I feel like I do. Sometimes I feel like if I don't put out, then now I'm playing games. I led them on. But that's why I don't let people buy anything for, if I don't plan to fuck them or, do something, then I wouldn't waste my time even going out with them. With him, I thought I might be able to, because he had all the mechanics. He was cute enough. Everything physically was there. But I'm getting older, and I'm finally maturing to that place where I'm beginning to think about more than just what feels good or what looks good. And really, what looks good, if it doesn't sound good, then I don't want it, especially in the night before, because of the way that we had talked and some of the things that he said. I was like, and the fact that he was cute, all three, all those factors made it so I felt like, you know what, I could get to know this guy. And so I wasn't really worried about us fucking. Because here's the way that it would work. If he had been exactly what I wanted, or turned out to be what I thought he might be when we were talking the night before, then I definitely would have ended up fucking him. I definitely would have ended up with him. Because I told you guys, I know me, and I know what kind of guys I like, and I know what kind of personalities I fall for. And so I can tell you, because of the factors and the things he said. But then when we started talking person to person, it seemed like he was playing more of a character, or pretending to be something that he wasn't, or where he wasn't. And for me, that's a deal breaker. I want only the real you. And if you're talking too fast and you're too spastic and you're not settling down, and then there was a point where I got upset at the restaurant we were at and they didn't handle something the way that they should have. And I'm not a patron from hell when it comes to restaurants. A lot of my friends work in restaurants, bars, but at the same time, I know how those things are supposed to work, and that pissed me off. And so I kind of lost it with them. Not kind of, I really lost it with them, and I don't regret that even a little bit, because at a point it did become a social experiment. It was just my own thing. I was watching everybody react to me being out of control, especially him. And he didn't handle it in a bad way at all, but he didn't handle it the way that I need somebody that's going to be with me to actually handle that. So it was like a even faster version of what I always do when I say I try to pull somebody in my life, and then they either work or they don't. I either keep them or I spit them out. And that one made me have to spit him out, not only because of that, but because, like I said, there were all even certain things that would seem like signs in a way, because I'm a little bit into numerology and numbers in general. And so 1111, 222, 333, 444, all of those times a day mean something. And so at one point he mentioned that 1111 had been following him around, and that he was leaving his house to come visit me at 1111. And, that's what time he was leaving his house. It was 1111. I looked at the time, though, and technically it was 11:10. But he might have different, but you can still be into it and just have a different watch, or, so it's not, that wasn't a thing. But I did notice, because I always pay attention to, like I said, those numbers follow me. And there's a reason if you believe in that stuff and whatever, So for me, it was like, okay, I could be possibly on the same track with this guy, or this guy could be on the same track with me. Then when we actually started talking, he didn't really know much about that stuff, and he really didn't look into it as anything. He just clueless. He had a 213 number, which I asked him why he had a number from that area code, because he didn't live in that city and said he never lived in that city, which is Los Angeles. And then he said that he just got that because he thought it seemed fancy to have a LA number, but that made no sense to me. That was weird. I asked him who he voted for. He said Green Party. Then when I told him I voted for Trump, he said he voted for Biden. Then he just copped to the fact that he voted for Trump, and that's where he stayed. He said he had voted for Trump. It just felt like I wasn't getting to know this guy in any real way, and I don't need anybody. So yeah, it sometimes would be nice to have somebody, especially just somebody that I felt comfortable with. We could watch movies together, we could hang out together, possibly be creative together, because that was the other thing. He did have a Robin Williams type energy, and I could see how using him for some stuff would be good, like sketches, or just ideally what would happen is I'll end up dating somebody that I like enough that I want to do something like this with, where people get to see our dynamic. That's not something I'm opposed to, just not every episode or whatever, but at least once a week we do something together if they're fun and gay and can show another side of me. And so I was thinking that way too, when he told me some of the things that he liked and just the way he was acting. It was silly and spastic and somewhat fun, and I could see playing off that personality, and we did play off of each other a little bit, but there was this definite drop off always where it was like, okay, well, now you're not. Because like all of that, if for me, like I could date somebody that's a complete like ditz to the rest of the world, as long as when I deal with them, they're like, I wouldn't mind a Marilyn Monroe gay personality next to me, like somebody like that, if I knew that they were putting on a little bit of a show and being entertaining. But then with me, they're the real person. But if you're that all the time, or that's all you show me of yourself, especially in the beginning, then I definitely won't be into it. And so it made me not into it and not want to even try to pursue it. It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. I think I shared way too much on this episode of Unbothered by Ty Rivera, but it is what it is. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.